Hello, hello from Malaysia. I am Cha Jones. I'm an expat and intercultural consultant living in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Um, we're running a couple minutes behind. Mm, Let's get started. Mm, All right, let's get started on this live international relocation to Kuala Lumpur section. Can't even talk today. uh Session. All righty. Right. Again, I'm Chad Jones. Sorry for the delay. We're having some technical issues, but we are moving now. So, again, I'm Chad Jones. I'm an intercultural and expat consultant and lifestyle consultant living in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I always get these questions about like cost of living and things like that in Malaysia. So, I wanted to do an info session where I can answer some of those questions. And this is going to be um, a comparison of living in Malaysia versus living in the United States, specifically in Washington, D.C. So the comparisons are to earlier this year. We know inflation has changed a lot over the last 6, 7, 8 months. And so um, at the time of this recording, we are in November, and I think I put this together probably in June or July. So please consider inflation, and let's get started. So we're going to talk about why Kuala Lumpur. I always like to start with why because that's important. Like you need to know why you're doing something. And so why would you even choose Kuala Lumpur? Why would that be even a good option? We're going to go over the overall cost of living, rental rates, restaurant prices, grocery prices, transportation, and utilities, and then also visas, because everyone wants to know, like, how can they be legal? So just a little bit about me. I have 15 years in the game. I'm not new to this. I am true to this. That's just real. I've been doing this for 15 years. I started my expat journey back in South Korea in late 2008, early 2009. I moved to South Korea to teach English. I was working at a university there, which then gave me the opportunity to teach intercultural um, communications to my students. And I didn't even know that was a thing because when I landed in Korea, didn't nobody give me any intercultural anything. Okay. But what I realized is that it is a thing and that people needed to understand it. I needed to understand like why certain people do things, high context, low context culture. And I got that from that experience of putting together a travel trip for our students that were going on a Red Cross excursion. And so it got me to thinking about some things. And then the next year, I was in a head-on collision and ended up um, forfeiting my trip back to Malaysia. So I was in the United States. I was in a head-on collision the day before I was supposed to move back to uh, South Korea, and that changed the trajectory of my life. I ended up going to grad school and studying intercultural leadership and management, specializing in international education, and started a nonprofit organization where we were helping African Americans, um, primarily women or young women, uh, study abroad, know where study abroad office is, and all that kind of thing. And from that experience, I then um, continued to just work in international development. I worked for a couple of nonprofit organizations and did some research in expats. And my dissertation was in helping understand more about this, what I called at that time the great new international migration, where, back in 2008, 2009, people were picking up and moving abroad and like, hey, this is a thing that we're going to do. And this is the beginning of the Black travel movement. And since that time, I then moved back abroad to Merida, Mexico in 2021. So, like, in the midst of the pandemic, I was there for 3 years and recently moved to Kuala Lumpur. So, today I just want to share with you all things that I've learned on my journey that may be able to assist you on yours. Um, so Global Bound Consulting is my company, and it was founded by me. And I have worked with Fortune 500 companies in the relocation space as an intercultural consultant, helping families move abroad and prepare for the intercultural aspects of living in a foreign country. And so it gives me great pleasure to be able to not only provide the things that I provide for Fortune 500 companies to self-initiated expats, and those are those who are picking up and going abroad on their own, because there's a traditional expat and then there's the self-initiated expat. And there's sometimes people who are in the midst of being in the middle. And so just want to make sure that people understand that there are plenty of options to help you move abroad. I work primarily with corporations, and then I also coach individuals who are trying to figure out for the very first time, like, how do they move abroad? What do they need to go abroad? So that's a little bit more detail. Now, let's get to the nitty gritty. Why? So I always say start with your why. It is extremely important to understand why you are doing something. And so for those who are looking at Kuala Lumpur, why would you choose Kuala Lumpur? Well, for me, I think that Kuala Lumpur has some great aspects to it. And if you are a new expat, it's actually probably one of the easier cities to get, I guess, get your bearings and have a soft landing. So for anyone who is considering Kuala Lumpur, I'm going to say, even though it is way further than if you're just starting off, it's extremely far. You have to consider that. You have to consider that it's going to take about 24, 36 hours to get here. Um, and that's just because of the flight patterns. Um, But once you get here, it's really easy to have a soft landing because the quality of life that you're going to get is easy to get settled. Financially, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money. Housing isn't expensive. But then that's relative. I tell this to every client I have, it's relative to what you want in your life and your lifestyle. So always consider that. You can have urban work and life here, you also could speak English. So that's the real transition. But according to the Internation is a expat group, and they always do this yearly, I think it's yearly, or every so often they do this survey where they survey the expats and they do it for corporations, and they'll see like what's for each city, what are some of the factors that factor into having a good life in that particular city. So these are some of the things that were said within that survey. However, I will add to it the fact of being able to speak English, being able to get around easily, and because of being able to speak English, you can negotiate and communicate a lot better. It is one of the best cities, I think, for having a soft landing. I also think just the cost of living and knowing that you get more for your money. Um, Although it's not like number one, right? Because you're only going to get about $4.50 for every dollar. So, for instance, came here from Mexico, you got a roughly, at when I first got to Mexico, it was about $20 to every dollar. And then that went down to like 17, and people was like, ah. Well, so $4, $4.50 is a big, difference. But at the same time, your money is going a little bit further, right? Um, So here are some things that I would say that makes Kuala Lumpur a good option. Again, I'll start with English, but once you get past the English part, you have a friendly environment. People are accepting. You can meet no stranger because, like, when I get into the Grab, which is equivalent to an Uber, everybody is like so kind. I have not had one bad experience here with people. The customer service can lack in certain environments. But as far as friendliness, people are extremely friendly. Again, most people speak English. Again, the cost of living is affordable. It's consistently ranked in the top three for finance and housing categories since 2017. Um, they have cutting edge healthcare. When I now listen, I don't ever anticipate going like anybody else to the hospital. However, that happens. And I've had two emergency visits. I've also gone to get like a women's check, and the facilities are always nice. Um, and then I've also taken my son to the pediatrician. And when I say stellar, like when I went to the pediatrician, it was amazing because he stopped. I remember we were looking at international schools at the time, and he stopped. He was like, "Well, okay." And I told him, he's like, "This is right out here." And he looked, he's like, "You live in that building." And literally, the hospital is like right in front of my building. And so just very cordial, and he was like, well, here are some of your options. He even got on the phone and called his surgeon friend. He was like, are you in surgery? And the guy was like, no. He was like, okay, well, then sit down. I need you to answer a couple questions for the patient's mother. And like literally they both stopped what they were doing to answer a couple questions that I had. And he was just really cool. He was like, listen, this is some of the things that Americans find interesting about being in Kuala Lumpur. These are things that you're going to deal with. Like literally just like sat down, pulled up a chair, and we just started talking. He was so animated and so like kind about like helping. And then it's like, listen, call me anytime. And that's not something you're gonna get from a doctor in America. I'm sorry. It's sad, but it's true. So as far as like I don't know about the medical tourism because I haven't gotten surgeries or things done. However, I know people come here, and I had a friend who was here. She got just tests done. Actually, I have two friends that got complete tests that cost like anywhere from $300 to $400, and they got like all their blood work done, CAT scans, everything. That would cost you 10 G's, period. And this is like without any kind of insurance. This is just like I came here and I'm getting work done. I want to, check on my health situations. And so I want to make sure that that's very clear. Like every time I've ever gone to a doctor outside of the US, particularly when I lived in Korea, I mean, not Korea, but Mexico, we had doctors that came to the house. So I was just like, what? This is a thing, house calls. I feel like that hasn't happened since, Little House on the Prairie. But so that's a great option to have. Also, Kuala Lumpur is actually a really beautiful city. They have green areas that are just amazing. So you can have some aspect of the jungle that kind of meets the urban city. And so that always makes for pleasantry. As far as Kuala Lumpur and the culture, the diversity, the weather, centrally located, that this makes Kuala Lumpur a very strong, competitive country when it comes to why you should live abroad or even how to get started. And the reason why is because, listen, there are three major ethnicities. There are more, but the actual country of Malaysia has three major ethnicities. That's the Malay, which is the main culture and the main well, everybody considers themselves Malay if you are part of these three ethnic groups. However, you have the Malay, you have Indian, and you have Chinese. And they've been here for hundreds of years. And Malay, that is the traditional language and the main culture here, and they're primarily Islamic. It's an Islamic country. But as far as traditions, they celebrate the Indian traditions, they celebrate the Malay traditions, they celebrate Chinese traditions. So there is a cultural fusion of all three ethnicities. Now you have a large population of Koreans here, you have large populations of Japanese here, uh, Taiwanese, Thai, Vietnamese. You have all kinds of cultures. So this makes it a melting pot, and it's a very diverse place to be, right? So there are several different languages being spoken, but you will have no issue speaking English. Malay is the primary language, but most people speak English. So going to a shop, uh, there's signs, everything is in English. But there's a plethora of festivals and celebrations that are to be had here. Again, looking at all of the three ethnic groups, um, there are holidays for specifically the Malay population, the Indian population, as well as the Chinese population, and then some Western traditions have been infused in the um, the mix as well. So historically, you have these things that have occurred here in the sense of like rich traditions. We're coming up on Chinese New Year's. That is a big thing. That's a big thing in Asia, period. But here, like they have a Chinatown, they have an area that's hugely populated with Indians called Brickfield. So there are so many different things that are going on that you can't miss a holiday. You can't miss a celebration. When I say fireworks, you have fireworks all over the city. So it's amazing. But There is a landmark which is known in Malaysia, primarily Kuala Lumpur, because it's in the city center of Kuala Lumpur, what they call KLCC. But it was one of the largest buildings at one time. It has been taken over. But this is one of the relics that they had, was just the Petronas Towers. And is the iconic landmark that you will see on most postcards and things like that. You also will see the Bantu caves. Um, and so if you're looking for beautiful buildings, they have them. It's a thing. So, like I said, the three ethnic groups pretty much make up the country, which is the Malay, Indian, and Chinese. But along with that, you get a diversity in people. And like I said, this is a melting pot. So you have people from everywhere. It's it's cosmo living, cosmopolitan. I can't talk today. It's early in the morning, y'all. Um, but the food, amazing. Like, especially with all three of these ethnicities, like Chinese, it's Chinese. I like Chinese. I have always tried to stay clear of meats in Chinese food. Just have. But I'm not really a big meat eater anyways, but I love Indian food. Like love Indian food. And they have some of the best Indian foods. Like I could take you to some restaurants so you could just be like, oh my God. And then the Malay food is just it's good. Like it's so good. Like you will not go hungry and it's cheap. Like you can literally feed a family of four for like less than $20 sitting down with drinks. And we'll get into that. But I love it. Um, the weather, okay, now this is the thing. I feel very comfortable here because I moved here from Mexico, okay? And it was hella hot. Hell hot, actually. It was hot because we were like 20 minutes from the beach. And so when you start moving away from the beach, you don't have that coastal breeze and you're not getting anything from the water. So it kind of makes you feel like you're in a valley. So it was like hella hot. But here, there are people who don't really like the weather because you're gonna get 80s, 90s. And it's not gonna be dry heat, it's gonna be humid, right? But for the most part, um, the weather is pretty pleasant. Now, I will say this, this slide is so off. I just realized it. I need to fix that. But for the weather, you're gonna get mostly 80s. It will rain a lot. You're in a tropical environment. And I would say that when I first got here, it rained every single day. Because it's kind of like Florida. It's gonna, rain and then it'll stop and clear up, and then you'll have a wonderful rest of the day. But then there is a rainy season that starts around September and lasts until January. So we are currently in rainy season, and it is raining every day, like pour down rain for about an hour, maybe even less. But that's something that you have to contend with is the rain for the most part. It's not necessarily the heat, it's the rain. Um, but sorry about that. We're missing a slide about the weather because it was doubled. Anyways, but we're gonna keep on moving. So we're gonna talk about location. Location is amazing. So if you want to travel and you're like, okay, I'm gonna move to this particular part of the world. I want to travel, I want to see other places. You can do that really reasonably in Kuala Lumpur because it's in Southeast Asia. And if you look at the map, we are connected to Thailand. So it's not far to get to Thailand. You can get to Bangkok in a couple hours. You can get to Singapore in 45 minutes, which is down here. This is Indonesia, so you can be there in a couple hours. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia is right here. So China, mainland China's right here. You have the Philippines over here. So within 6 hours, like I think you can be in Korea in 6 hours, but you have like starting from Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Philippines, all of that is within 6 hours flight. So you're centrally located. A lot of these flights, like you can get to Singapore for $15 most of the time, and depending on the time of the year, you can get to Bangkok for like $60, 50, $60, depending on the time of year. There are times where the flights are a little bit higher. Um, but you can't jump countries in North America like that without it being hundreds of dollars. So that's important to understand that you are able to get to many, many different places. If you want to go see Southeast Asia, you can pretty much like you can be in India, which is a little further in 4 hours. Um, you can even be in the Middle East in 7 hours. So again, it's very centrally located where you are able to see many, many countries that you can just check off your bucket list and have a great time and then go home. Like you can do day trips as well. So if you live in Kuala Lumpur, and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna do a day trip. I'm gonna go to Indonesia or I'm gonna go to Phuket or, wherever, you can do that because it's centrally located. And so you have opportunity, and it is so much cheaper to travel in Southeast Asia. I remember the first time I came to Kuala Lumpur was in 2012, and I booked the ticket. Literally, it was like 100. It was like less than $100, and then I had a ticket to Singapore that was like five. I paid $5 extra to go to Singapore. So where are you doing that? That in and of itself makes this a hot. So I don't know why people be sleeping on KL or Malaysia as a whole should do it. Okay, so let's get into the comparison. And like I said earlier, I picked DC to compare because that's where I lived prior to moving to Mexico and leaving the country. And so cost of living is 58% lower. Great thing because DC is, one of the higher rental areas or cost of living in the US. It's much higher than, some like the Midwest areas. It's probably in the top 5 to 10 as far as high rents. So cost of living, including rent, is 68% lower than DC. That's a big leap, right? And the rent prices is about 82.4% lower than in DC. So we talking about real money right here, y'all. So DC, you have extremely high rents. Like I said, I think they're in the top five. And so a $2,200 per month rent is 49% higher than the national average of 1,500. In a three-bedroom, you can get, so three-bedroom is going to be 5,300. So I'm gonna talk about one and two bedrooms because that's the most common. So in Kuala Lumpur, you can get a one bedroom for $504. You can actually get one cheaper than that, but I'm doing averages, but I know people who have a one bedroom who are paying 300 easily. I know people who are paying for a two bedroom about 500. So it just depends on what area you are in. But the average cost of a three bedroom is a little less than $1,000. So you can see the prices compared to DC, you are doing so much doing so much better with my speaking. This is real life. It's live. Okay. Restaurant prices. So an inexpensive restaurant, and I don't even think this is true because I just left DC like a month ago. Um, and this was not true. But inexpensive restaurant in DC is about $25, and mid-range is about for two people, it's about $100. I haven't ate for $25 in DC for one person at a mid-range. Like, hell, you go to Chick-fil-A, you gonna spend $25. So I don't know. But that's that. So in Kuala Lumpur, an inexpensive restaurant is $4. I told you you could feed a whole family of four for less than $20. That's like your most inexpensive restaurant in DC. So a mid-range restaurant is gonna be about $29. I have gone to an upscale restaurant and left paying $35. So when I say you can get reasonable food, you can get reasonable food. Um, and that's like, hey, as long as I'm eating, I'm good. So public transportation. I know all cities in the US don't have public transportation, but the ones that do, um, it's not that bad per se. But so DC is $2.50 for one way ticket, but it also depends on how far that stop is as well. So you can get a monthly pass for about $77. And gasoline, when I last checked, was like for I think it was 87. I'm not sure, but 365 per gallon. I don't drive in Malaysia. I did drive in the US, and I was getting gas for anywhere from 350 to $4 per gallon, depending on, and I drove a luxury SUV. So I remember it getting up to like 475. Um, Here in Malaysia, you can get a one-way ticket on the train for 64 cents. Again, that's going to depend on where you're going because it's going to be further. If it's further, it's going to be more. Monthly pass is about $10.62, and a gallon of gas is $1.65. I wish I drove here. I just don't trust the traffic. I don't trust, I don't trust the motorcycles. They scare me. Like we've had some encounters, but I digress. Let's get into the utilities. This is important. Oh, I love talking about this part because in DC, for a 900 square foot, like 915 square foot apartment, it's about $175 for your basic utilities. We're talking about electric, water, gas, and such, right? Internet is about $65 a month. Water runs about 25 to $30. And I be hearing people talking about they have water bills at 100. I'm like, well, what kind of water are you using? I've never lived in a city where I had a water bill like that, $100. I've never, but that just might be me. But um, yeah, and I be running water like it's free. So in Kuala Lumpur, basic utilities for a 915 square foot apartment is $59 per month. And I can attest to that. So my electricity running the air condition consistently is about $60. About 60, $65. I think my highest bill has was $68. Um, Internet's about $25. That's accurate. My water though is 6.5 ringgit, which is equivalent to $1.50. So every month is $1.50. So I just pay it. I'm like, look, I'm be here for a year. Here you go. Here you go, yo, $14 or whatever it is. So yeah, I just pay it in advance because I will never remember that. So, but that lovely, lovely. So you can see in the utility costs how much you're really saving. It's like amazing. All right. Here is the big question. Everybody wants to know about tourist visa. So you can actually come into the country if you are on, and I'm gonna talk about Americans because I don't know nothing about nobody else. I'm American. I have a American passport. Um, I don't know. Some people get 30 days. Some people get 90 days. Some people get 60 days. And it just depends on your passport, right? And so I tell people all the time, passports are your privilege. And it just is. And unfortunately, it's that way where different countries get certain privileges. Um, I don't have anything to do with that. But as an American, you can get up to 90 days. I say up to 90 days because it really just depends on your attitude when you come to through the line at immigrations and who you get immigrations. And if you're really nice to the immigrations officer, because they don't have to give you 90 days, they can give you what they want to give you. But you can get up to 90 days to stay in the country if you're American. And this is for short-term visits, so scouting trips, initial exploration, just seeing the country. And so you also want to keep that in mind because if you're going to get over to like Thailand, you're not going to get 90 days. You'll get like 30 days. I think they may give you up to 60 days now for initial visits, but you have to check these things as you are moving through um, to different countries because you can't just assume, oh, I got 90 days in Kuala Lumpur, I'm gonna get 90 days somewhere else. You're not. And again, be cognizant that they can change that at the immigration line right there in front of you. So yeah, so oftentimes you don't have to apply in advance when you can get the 90 days, but you also need to go to the website and make sure, depending on the country. But here you don't, only thing you need to do is 3 days prior to coming to Malaysia, you do have to fill out this form that's online. And the airline should tell you in advance, but I'm telling you, just so you know that if you haven't filled out, I think I'm gonna put in the description, but there is a form that you fill out prior to entering the country. Okay, so they also have a MM2H, which is the Malaysian My Second Home program, and this I recommend this for people who are wanting to live here forever, or this is like going to be their permanent home situation, or like it says, their second home. They're retired. They're going to be what we would consider in the U.S. like snowbirds, where they live in North America or the northern part of America in North America. They live in like Detroit, Michigan, or they live in Boston, Massachusetts, or they live in New York, somewhere in the north, and then they go to Florida or Texas or wherever they migrate during the warmer seasons. So this is kind of like that. So maybe you live in America during the summer and then you come in the winter to your house in Malaysia. This is a great visa for that. It's great for retirees. It's a long-term resident visa again for retirees or high earners. So individuals with a high net worth. It's kind of almost similar to the golden visa that they have in Europe. Um, or that they had. I know, like specifically in Portugal, they had the golden visa and it went away and came back. And so, anyways, but for Malaysia, this is similar to that. So you do have to have at least 500,000 ringgit, which is, let me do the math real quick for you. So that's about like 112 as of today. Time of recording, it's $112,000 US. You have to be 50 or above. Again, they're looking at retirees. And then you have to be able to have 300,000 um, offshore income. Fixed deposit, that's 300,000 ringgit. And again, divide that by like five and you'll get an estimate about how much that is. Fixed deposit, you have to put 300,000 ringgit. And again, uh, that's six about almost $7,000 that you're putting into a bank that's going to sit. And it's renewable for 10 years. So you get 10 years on that visa and you get multiple entries. And so this is a residency program, very similar to um, other countries who have long-term residency. Does not make you a citizen, just to clear that up. It just gives you long-term access to go and come as you please. They do have another program that is considered the digital nomad visa. In most cases, you need to be like a remote worker. So you have income coming in from the country of your origin. Um, Oftentimes, this one you have to have like some kind of digital job, maybe a content creator. Um, you can have a remote, so you just have to, there is a criteria. So you do need to look this up. You can't just be like, okay, I'm a remote worker in finance, because you can get denied. So look at what qualifies you as a digital nomad. But no, like it's content creators, web designers, people like that, considered digital nomad visas. So you get inbound entry. This lasts up to a year. You can renew. Um, so they can do it for either 3 months to 12 months. And a lot of digital nomad people move around and they only stay in a place for 3 to 6 months. And so this gives you up to 12 months, but it can be renewed. You are able to bring a spouse and a child. And it's going to cost you roughly 1,000 ringgit, which is basically, oops, like $225. And then your dependents is going to be half of that. So keep in mind that's viable for a lot of people. There are a couple more, um, but there are a lot of details. But I would say go to the Malaysian immigration website or look up visas in Malaysia, and they'll give you a list. I think it's about six. Remember that your passport, you have to have at least 6 months of empty space for your stamping. Um, for and this is specifically for digital nomad. So you do need to have you have to have at least 6 months of of time on your passport. So your passport needs to not be renewed within the next 6 months. I would just say a year. You're gonna need your resume. You're gonna need three bank statements, three income statements, and your tax returns. You're gonna need a valid project contract from the company in which you are affiliated with, uh, whether that is a contract or whether that is the actual your business. So if it's your business, do you have contracts that are gonna be lasting 3 months period? um, Personal bond. And so you can ask lawyers, what the details are that of that is. Um, we have a little visitor. Yeah, he just woke up. Good morning. All right, thank Okay. Sorry about that. So you need a letter of good conduct. This they want you to get from like a law enforcement in the city. And so this is where it becomes a little convoluted because, and especially like DC, where am I going to get that? Right. So, but you just need a letter. It just needs to be stamped and they're serious about that. So you need something with your education stating that you have a degree or your highest education. Uh, so if this is high school, you need to be able to produce those documents as well. And you also have to have medical insurance. And you can get travel insurance like through Safety Wing or something like that, Cigna, wherever. You just have to be able to prove that you actually have travel insurance, because what they don't want you to do is come here and get sick, and then it becomes an issue for the country. So you need to have your own travel insurance and or insurance that will cover any medical issues that you have while you are in Malaysia. And then you also have to have this tax registration slip. You need to go to the website to get more detail about that one as well. And it's just it's it's just the thing that you get signed off on. So as a remote worker, pretty much it's the same things that you're going to need. They same thing. Um, yeah. So those are the things I wanted to specifically talk about as far as relocation, the cost of living, what it's like living. And I'm just going to be very transparent. I live here. I've lived in other countries. I've traveled to over 28 different countries. And by far, this is a wonderful place to live. Again, people can complain about the heat. I don't find it that hot. And if you, do find it that hot, they have 550,000, not literally, but it seems like it. Air conditioning malls that people be out in. And you can go get all your air conditioning needs met right there at the malls. And then you can get retail therapy. So it's a great place to not only visit, but if you're considering living there, the numbers don't lie. It's, much cheaper than living in one of the top places in the US to live, which, I compared it to DC. However, if you are living in, the middle of the United States, I'm from Nebraska. I'm gonna use Nebraska. The cost of living in Nebraska is high now too. So compared to pretty much any city in the US, you're going to save a lot of money. I don't recommend that you just move to a place just for expenses, because you also have to think about your quality of life and lifestyle in every area. Are you going to be able to build community and have a social connection? That's going to be important. That's something that you should look at. I didn't cover that. But there is a large expat community. There are large expat areas here. There are about 10 different living areas within the city of Kuala Lumpur that people move to. People ask me often, like, oh, where's the best place for me to live? I can't answer that question for you, because what's the best place for you and for me are two different places, right? Consider Considering I have a child, right? So what my needs are going to be, if you're a single person, your needs are going to be totally different, right? Also have to consider, like, I'm not gonna be at the club. I don't even care about the club. I do like these nice rooftop situations, and I frequent them. But at the same time, that's not gonna be important to me. What's gonna be important to me is, like, am I close to a hospital? Am I close to getting to a grocery store? Am I close to is it easily accessible for public transportation? I don't take the train because it takes me, I have to go all the way to the train station. That's gonna take me a grab. So once I'm in the grab, I might as well just go ahead and grab one to the place that I need to be. I'm not gonna take no more stops just to save $2. I'm not doing that. It takes too much energy, and time is money. I don't have time for that. So you have to consider, like, how do you want to move through the city? Do you want to be on the train? Do you want to be in a building? You can actually live in a building that has a train that station that comes directly to that building. And you can go underground and then come, you know. So those things are things that you may want to think about. Kuala Lumpur has all of those, has wonderful cities. You can also be outside of the city and had a great life. There are places like Cyberjaya that are more suburban, it's quieter, it's more family oriented. that may be a possibility for you. So you do have a plethora of decisions when you are thinking about the place that you want to live. I hope that I have gone into detail about some of the things that you may or may not be thinking about as far as when you're moving abroad. But um, I hope I answered any questions. If I haven't, make sure to put those questions in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you are interested in coming to Malaysia, I do have a relocation tour that's January 27th through February 3rd that will allow you to meet realtors, immigration officer, so you can ask any questions about the visas. You can see property, we'll do a property tour, and you will also be able to see the city and go on different tours so that you can sightsee. If you have children, we will introduce you to some of the international schools so that you can have questions answered about how to register your children. Also, if you don't necessarily qualify for one of the visas and you still want to get information about how you can live in Kuala Lumpur and you have a child, if you register your child for educational purposes to attend school, you can get a visa as the parents. So that the child actually has the student visa and then you have a guardianship visa. So that's also an opportunity. I didn't really go into that here, but that's also an opportunity if you're considering moving and maybe you're trying to figure out how you're going to get a visa. So that's, or you can go to school. You could be the student and then you have dependents. So those are viable options as well. If you have any questions, I'm always here to answer. I have also Oh, let me finish talking about I skipped over, but finish talking about the relocation tour. So you get the opportunity to be here for 7 days. It's also during the time of Chinese New Year. So you're going to be able to experience Chinese New Year that starts on January 29th. Um, there is a payment plan, so you don't have to worry about that. So if you're interested, I'm going to have the information in the description on YouTube for all the things for the relocation tour. Again, you can see the different properties, you can ask questions of the actual people who can answer those questions for you. So you have realtors, you have immigrations, you have relocation people like myself who can answer any intercultural questions or anything like that for you, but you'll get all the nitty gritty. Then you get to see the city, and I have a lot of wonderful excursions. You get to go to Bantu Cave, you get to go to Chinatown, Brickfield, you get to experience the food. So Petronas Towers, all of that is in this excursion. But more importantly, it will answer some of the questions about where you want to live, because we'll also do a neighborhood tour. So you'll get to see the different areas that might be for you. So with that experience, again, it's going to be priceless because you get firsthand information from the people who can answer the questions for you. Um, and then with that being said, if you are just trying to consider KL and you need someone that can be your accountability partner who can answer questions, I have clients who they've been to KL, but they're trying now to find a place sight unseen. And I go in, I work with the realtor to tell them exactly what they need. I go out and do the house scouting for them, send them videos, walk through with them. This is what the place will look like. We even go in terms of the rental agreement so that, you know, they're clear about what they need. And then I have realtors that will be with them for the duration of the agreement. So if they have issues, they have someone who can answer those questions for them. So I do those services. If you need consultations, you can go to my website, childjones.com, and book time. where we can talk about what your relocation needs are, and I can give you sound advice about your needs. But I want to advise you, like when you're looking at the video or when you're looking at a different place, I don't care if it's Kuala Lumpur or somewhere else, when you ask questions, blanket statements like, what's the best place to live? I can't tell you that. And anybody who's giving you an answer about that, they're only going to give you an answer based on who they are. They can't give you an answer based on who you are. So I can't tell you the best place for you to live. I'll tell you the best place for me to live. I can tell you what my needs are. I can tell you the lifestyle I want to live. I can tell you how much I'm willing to pay and what I'm not willing to pay for. I can tell you, I'm not going to live in certain areas. I'm not doing that. Somebody else will be like, you know what, that's fine because I'm only gonna be laying my head there for so many hours and I'm gonna be out here in these streets. That's not my house is I'm a Taurus, I nest. I want my house to be pretty, I want it to be comfortable, and I want it to be efficient for the things I want to do. So I can tell you what certain areas have and what certain neighborhoods have, but I can't tell you if that's going to be suitable for you. So you can get there and be like, this is not it. Because there's so many things that go into picking your home. And for me, a home is extremely important. Again, some people just like, this is only a place I'm gonna lay my head. I don't care how clean it is. I don't care, it just needs to have the essentials. That's fine. However, I'm just gonna be clear, that's not how I operate, right? Um, and so when people ask me, what's the best neighborhood? Do you have children? Do you have pets? Because this is a Muslim country and there are certain areas that your dog is not allowed. Your cat might be, but your dog is not allowed. So you have to be clear about that as well. Um, if you are trying to bring pets, it's going to be important that you understand that you can't have pets in certain neighborhoods. And that may be the neighborhood you really, really want to live in, but your dog can't live there. So there are more pet friendly neighborhoods like Dessa Park, which is it's a area that there are more Chinese people living in the area, or more like Koreans, Chinese. Yeah, that's pretty much the mix of it. But Desert Park is beautiful. Has a lake. Um, it's it's just beautiful. I love the area, but your dog would be acceptable there. There are some parts of KLCC your dog is not going to be acceptable there. So it's important to just think about those things as you are thinking about where you should move. And that's going to be in any country. You just need to know what your desires are and how to move forward. And again, I want to also be clear about like when people think of lower costs or I hear cheap, you don't want cheap, right? There are areas that are lower cost of living than other areas. But again, that's relative because you can talk to somebody and they like, oh, I pay $2,200. Okay. So you could have paid $2,200 where you came from. Are you trying to save money or you just really want a really nice lifestyle? And that's fine if you're willing to pay $2,200. And there's no judgment on that. But for other people, when you're thinking about cost of living, if you're retiring, you want to be able to live off your pension and not have to ever go to work again. So moving to a country that gives you a lower cost of living and a better lifestyle is important. And so a lot of my clients, they're like, okay, I'm retiring. I don't want to work ever again in life. And so I have a pension that I'm only making like $3,000 on, or not making, but I get $3,000 a month. I don't want to have to do anything. And I want my 3,000 to stretch so that I'm not capped at that 3,000, right? And so it's going to be viable to live in a place that has a lower cost of living, not cheap, but lower cost of living. So those are things that you want to consider and keep in mind as you're looking for places to live. Um, that all of these things are relative because it's relative to your budget, it's relative to the life and the lifestyle that you want to have for yourself. It's relative to anybody that is coming with you. Are you dating, trying to date? Do you have a relationship? What are their needs? Do you have children and what are their needs? So all of these things are going to shift based on your needs and the perspective that you're coming to any country with. So please keep those things in mind. Again, you can reach out to me via my website at chadjones.com. If you are really looking at the relocation, you can also go to my business website, which is globalboundconsulting.com, and it will give you, I have relocation guides there. I have more details about like what it takes to relocate, things like that. So I hope that you found this useful and helpful, and that you got some of your answers, if not all of your answers, for the questions that you have. But again, I'm just one step away. Please like, share, subscribe if you found this content useful. Again, it does not cost you anything. It's free 99 just to click on some buttons. But again, I thank you for being here, and I hope that you find this video useful. You can go back through it. If you have questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always here. And thank you. And again, if you're interested in that relocation tour, I'm going to have that information in the description where you can uh, ask questions about that and or book. And again, that's in January of 2025, which is only a couple months away. Again, thank you. And I look forward to helping anyone that I can possibly help. But until next time, you be safe. At the time of this recording, we are a couple days from Thanksgiving. So I wish you all a very happy, festive holiday.